Esther moved into our senior living community and was weepy and anxious most of the time. She would cry in her apartment. She would cry when she was with people. And during meals, she was often overwhelmed with emotion, and her anxiety was so intense that even finding her way back to her apartment could feel frightening. Staff members tried to comfort her, but most days she remained inconsolable. What made the situation even more puzzling was what her family told us. They kept repeating, "This isn't like her. This isn't who she's been her whole life." Esther had always been upbeat and social. There was no diagnosis of cognitive impairment. She was simply struggling with sadness in a way that surprised everyone who loved her. Situations like Esther's raise a question many families eventually ask. Why does happiness sometimes feel harder later in life? And just as importantly, how can older adults rediscover a sense of joy? These are important questions because emotional well being plays a major role in the quality of life for seniors. Understanding what contributes to sadness and what can restore hope can help both seniors and their families navigate this season of life with greater compassion and wisdom. This episode of Senior Living Moments deals with the issue of why happiness feels harder later in life and how to increase your joy.
Welcome to Senior Living Moments with Nancy Nelson. With 45 years of connecting with seniors, 2 decades of award-winning experience in assisted living, and a heart full of compassion, Nancy brings you stories that resonate and insights that empower. Get ready for real conversations, practical wisdom, and heartfelt humor to help you and your loved ones navigate the journey of seasoned adulthood with confidence and grace. And now, here's Nancy.
Like to thank Belmont Village Senior Living for sponsoring today's episode. Belmont Village is nationally recognized for its clinical expertise, particularly in memory care and cognitive health. Their highly trained nurses, caregivers, and wellness teams work around the clock to support residents with dignity and respect. Families often choose Belmont Village because they want both compassionate care and clinical confidence. Learn more about their approach at belmontvillage.com. My own mother experienced something similar in her later years. In her younger days, she was the cheerful person in every room. She laughed easily, she had a quick wit, and she could respond to almost anyone with a playful and funny remark. Her humor made people feel comfortable and welcome, and she was the kind of person that others naturally gravitated toward. But as she grew older, something slowly changed. She became quieter and more introspective. Conversations that once energized her seemed to exhaust her. At times, she would sit quietly while others talked, choosing not to even join in. The laughter that once defined her personality became less frequent, replaced by a gentler and sometimes heavier emotional tone. This pattern is more common than many people realize. A study from the University of Michigan's National Poll on Healthy Aging found that about 1 in 3 adults between the ages of 50 and 80 report experiencing loneliness at least some of the time. Loneliness doesn't always mean someone is physically alone. It can also reflect a sense that life has changed in ways that make meaningful connection more difficult. Living alone can intensify that experience. Research from the University of Southern California found that 38% of older adults living alone reported significant anxiety, while 27% reported symptoms of depression, both higher than rates among seniors living with others. When daily life becomes quieter and more isolated, emotional burdens can become heavier. The broader health implications are also significant. According to the National Academies of Sciences, chronic loneliness in older adults is associated with increased risks of heart disease, dementia, depression, and even early mortality. Emotional well-being is not simply a luxury in later life, it's a critical component of overall health. There are several reasons happiness can become harder to access in the later years. One of the most common is a growing sense of loss. As people age, they inevitably face more losses than they did earlier in life. These losses may include the death of a spouse or close friends, declining health, reduced mobility, and changes in vision or hearing. Retirement can also bring a surprising shift in identity. For many adults, work provides structure and purpose, recognition. Careers often shape how people see themselves and how others value them. When that role disappears, some individuals feel as if a part of their identity has quietly slipped away. Another profound loss involves control. Seniors who once managed households, drove wherever they wished, and made decisions independently may suddenly find those freedoms reduced. Moving into senior living, giving up driving, or relying on others for daily support can create the unsettling feeling that life is happening to them rather than being directed by them. That shift can easily lead to anxiety, sadness, and withdrawal. Health concerns are another significant factor. My husband and I were watching television one evening around 9 o'clock, and it seemed as if every commercial advertised a new medication for seniors. We joked that perhaps advertisers assume that older adults are still awake while everyone else has gone to bed, flipping channels and paying attention to pharmaceutical ads. Behind that humor, however, is a serious reality. Many seniors experience increasing health concerns as they age. Medications become more numerous and sometimes interact with each other. Cognitive changes may occur gradually, causing both seniors and family members to worry about what lies ahead. The health challenges that many seniors face can include several common experiences: increasing medications and potential interactions, cognitive changes that are noticed by oneself or others, fear of illness or the possibility of death, depression and a growing desire to withdraw socially, declining vision or hearing that can lead to isolation, changes in appetite and sleep patterns, diseases that reduce energy, mobility, and balance. About 80% of adults over 65 live with at least one chronic condition, and nearly 70% live with two or more, according to the CDC in 2022. Managing these conditions can be physically exhausting and emotionally draining, especially when they interfere with independence. Chronic pain is another powerful factor that can affect happiness in later life. Pain that persists day after day can gradually reshape a person's outlook and behavior. It can reduce patience, limit activity, and make social interaction feel overwhelming. I experienced this personally when I began having pain in my back and legs, seemingly out of nowhere. At first, I assumed it was sciatica or perhaps a pulled muscle that would eventually resolve on its own. Instead, the pain grew worse with each passing week. My first doctor focused on my back, and I went through MRIs and epidurals and x rays. Months passed while the pain increased, and the answers became less clear. Eventually, another physician took a quick x ray and concluded that I needed two total hip replacements. Even after hearing that diagnosis, I hesitated because I wasn't comfortable with the doctor's bedside manner. During those months of delay, the pain intensified. I began walking with a cane and sometimes found myself tearing up simply trying to stand from a chair. Eventually, I located a different surgeon who confirmed the need for surgery, and I agreed to proceed. Both hips were replaced 5 weeks apart. The relief afterward was almost immediate, but the experience left a lasting impression on me. I remember telling myself that I never wanted to forget what chronic pain feels like. It can affect your personality, your patience, and even your desire to be around other people. When someone lives with that kind of pain every day, it can quietly erode their sense of joy. Another surprisingly important factor in emotional well being is exposure to fresh air and new environments. Many seniors, particularly those who no longer drive, can go days or even weeks without leaving their homes. Illness, fear of falling, or simply fatigue can make the outside world feel distant and complicated. Over time, a home can begin to feel like a less of a sanctuary and more like a small, quiet prison. Without new scenery or spontaneous encounters, days begin to blend together. The absence of stimulation can slowly diminish a person's sense of vitality. My mother experienced something similar while living in the country. Groceries were delivered, and occasionally she would greet the postal worker, but there were stretches of time when she spoke with almost no one. She kept her doors and her windows locked because that made her feel safe. Whenever my siblings or my husband and I visited, our goal was simple. We wanted just to get her out of the house. Sometimes we would take her to lunch, or other days we would stop at a nursery to buy flowers, visit a pumpkin farm for homemade jam, or simply enjoy a cup of coffee together at a local cafe. Without fail, she would comment afterwards that the outing lifted her spirits. Fresh air and a change of scenery made a remarkable difference in how she felt. Even something as simple as an ice cream trip to Dairy Queen could brighten her entire afternoon. Later in life also brings deeper reflection. As people enter what many call the autumn or the autumn season of life, they naturally begin asking questions about meaning and purpose. These questions often arise quietly during moments of solitude. Many seniors find themselves wondering, did I fulfill my purpose in life? What do I do with regrets that still linger? What will dying feel like? How do I make peace with unresolved hurts or disappointments? Some also ask spiritual questions about faith and the possibility of God. These are not casual thoughts, they are profound reflections that deserve patience and thoughtful conversation. I've sat at the bedside of many seniors who wanted simply to talk through some of these questions with someone willing to listen. Another powerful factor in emotional well being is connection. One afternoon, my husband and I were sitting in a Starbucks when the nearby middle school dismissed for the day. Within minutes, the cafe filled with eighth graders talking, laughing, and gathering around tables. It struck me that these students had just spent 8 hours together in school, yet the first thing they wanted to do afterward was gather again and continue connecting. Their energy reminded me that human beings crave connection at every stage of life. That need never disappears. Grandparents need connection with their grandchildren. Adult children benefit from staying connected with their parents. Friends need time together. Whether young or old, rich or poor, connection remains a universal human need. When that need goes unmet, sadness often follows. Loneliness can creep into daily life quietly and gradually, especially when social routines change or relationships become less frequent. So, how can joy be rediscovered in later life? One place to begin is with our thoughts. Our emotions are often shaped by what occupies our minds. When our thinking is filled with worry or regret, or our emotional world tends to follow that direction. A helpful first step is accepting reality as it currently exists. That may include acknowledging physical limitations, illness, or changes in lifestyle. Saying aloud, "This is my reality. What can I do with it?" can change the focus from resistance to adaptation. Another helpful perspective involves partnering with our bodies rather than fighting them. 7 years ago, I lost hearing completely in my right ear. Hearing aids cannot correct it because all I hear is white noise. I certainly wish I could hear better, but that part of my body simply no longer functions the way it once did. Instead of focusing only on that loss, I try to appreciate the many ways my body still works faithfully each day. Gratitude for what remains healthy can create a more balanced emotional outlook. Practicing gratitude itself is another powerful habit. Each morning before getting out of bed, some people find it helpful to name 3 things that they're thankful for. Others reflect at night on 3 positive moments from the day. These simple practices may seem small, but they gradually shift attention away from discouragement. Research from the University of California, Davis demonstrates that regularly practicing gratitude can improve emotional well being, increase optimism, and even enhance sleep quality. Gratitude does not eliminate hardship, but it also helps keep hardship from dominating our perspective. Emotional healing also involves acknowledging feelings honestly. When sadness is left unspoken, it can grow heavier. Speaking those feelings aloud can reduce their power. Somebody might say, "I'm lonely and I need to spend time with another person today." Another person might admit, "I miss my spouse deeply and I'm going to spend some time remembering them this morning." Naming your emotions clearly often brings a surprising sense of relief. Taking physical action can also restore connection. Even small steps outward can open doors to meaningful interaction. A short conversation with a barista, a friendly exchange with someone in a grocery store line, or a brief chat with a neighbor can brighten a day. For seniors living in a community setting, simply attending meals and asking others a few thoughtful questions can spark new friendships. Walking to a nearby park bench or sitting in a common area also creates opportunities for spontaneous conversation. After my father's wife passed away, he found himself living alone in a large house. The silence became overwhelming. Eventually, he made a simple decision to change his routine. He began visiting a favorite cafe several times a week. There, he talked with waiters and he greeted people sitting nearby. He chatted with the manager. What started as an ordinary lunch gradually became a daily highlight. That small step toward connection helped restore a sense of belonging. Kindness is another powerful path back to joy. Many people carry emotional burdens from the past, like regrets, misunderstandings, or relationships that never fully healed. While the past cannot be changed, the present still offers opportunities for generosity and compassion. Offering a compliment, apologizing when necessary, bringing flowers to someone who is hurting, or simply sitting beside a lonely person can transform both lives involved. Acts of kindness often bring unexpected emotional rewards. I have a friend named Lisa who has endured extraordinary loss. She experienced the death of a child, the loss of her husband, and several other painful tragedies. Yet Lisa radiates warmth and encouragement wherever she goes. She's always finding someone to hug, someone to sit beside, or someone whose shoulder she can gently rub while they cry. Her hands are constantly doing something kind for others. Watching her reminds me that compassion can become a powerful source of joy. Life in its later seasons will always include challenges. The autumn of life brings reflection and change and sometimes loss. Yet joy is not something reserved only for youth. It remains accessible, though it may appear in quieter forms. By adjusting our thinking and acknowledging our emotions, reaching out to others, and choosing kindness, we can rediscover moments of meaning and connection. Joy may not look exactly the same as it once did, but it can grow beautifully in the autumn season of life.